This is the Brandon T. Adams audio experience. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Brandon T. Adams audio experience. I'm Brandon T. Adams, and today I have Dr. Tristina Anderson, an award-winning author, international speaker, and global C-suite consultant who has spent more than 25 years working alongside leaders and executives around the world. She is also the star of the upcoming film Fearless, based on her award-winning book, Resilience: Picking Up My Shattered Pieces, which tells a story of her extraordinary journey through adversity, resilience, and ultimately choosing to live without fear. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brandon.
This is exciting.
Thank you.
You know, we met through a mutual friend, Sean Vella, who I've filmed with before, and he said, hey, you got to talk to Tristina. You and I did a call, and just your story is so amazing. We're going to jump into it. We're going to talk about your film, which is coming out as well. But can we go way back at the beginning? Where did you grow up? What was the first 18 years of your life like?
So I grew up in a little town, farm town, Prongi, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Okay.
So that's where I spent the first 13 years of my life. And my parents got divorced when I was 13, and we moved to another bigger, smaller town, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And I stayed there and finished out my high school.
So growing up, were you into sports, like any kind of activities, working?
Yeah. So I got my first job, actually. My dad was a livestock dealer. So I used to go with him to the stockyards and watched him buy and sell cattle and horses. So my first job actually was working at the stockyards, selling canteen goods and all that kind of stuff, and painting the farm fences to earn a little extra money.
I used to hate painting.
Yeah.
So you knew what manual, like real work was.
Yeah. And, growing up on the farm, you got to do different little things. Like if you wanted to catch gophers, and you get your little 25 cents and all that kind of stuff. But that's where I spent my first 13 years, was growing up on the farm. I did figure skating, cross-country skiing, downhill skiing. We lived close to a ski hill. Yeah. So I had a really good youth childhood.
I guess the winters are cold in Canada. So
yes, they are very cold.
I mean, I grew up in Iowa, so I know the cold, but not quite what you've experienced. Yeah. So talk about college. Like where did you want to go? You end up going to what college you go to, and then what was your degree in? Yeah.
So I actually, after I graduated high school, I went to school working. So after my parents got divorced, my mom didn't have a lot of money. So I worked right at the age of 13. Actually, my first job was sewing purses.
Okay.
Just to help provide money for the family. So after I graduated high school, I went to college locally, Gabriel Dumont Institute, where I ended up getting a 2-year diploma there. And while I was still working at a hotel, actually working the night shift at a hotel and going to school during the day. And then after I was done that 2-year diploma, I moved to Calgary, Alberta, which was to me the big city. Yeah. It was the shining star of, you've made it now. You're going to the big city. And then from there, I ended up getting more university classes at Athabasca University.
And you ended up getting your MBA.
Ended up getting an MBA and then a doctorate degree actually after that as well.
When you were going through school, like, did you have a vision of what you wanted to do, or just, I want to expand my mind and get a degree? Like, did you know what you wanted to do when you grew up?
When I was younger, as I was growing up when I was younger, to me, I wanted to be a CEO. Like, to me,
that was your vision.
That was the vision. I wanted to be a CEO when I moved to Calgary. Calgary is a really large oil and gas. It would be similar to Texas and stuff like that, Dallas, very oil and gas driven. And so that's where I wanted to be, in the oil and gas industry. And then I also thought is, if you're traveling for work and you're sitting on an airplane and you're traveling back and forth, again, to me, that was a milestone that you made what you needed to make. So that was the other thing.
Being able to travel.
Being able to travel.
So that's funny, leads into going into the airline business.
Yes.
How does that, that's so fascinating to me. I've been on so many planes, private and commercial. Like, I couldn't imagine what it's like to have your own airline. How did you even, where did that come about? Oh, let's get in the airline business.
Well, my ex-husband, my kids' dad, is and was a pilot. Yeah. And so there was an opportunity that the previous owners of the company wanted an exit strategy. So that's kind of how we got in. We got into a partnership group to help them with their exit strategy. And with my business background, in masters and stuff like that. The bank was wanting to have some type of stability on the ownership group who has some experience in business and all that kind of stuff. So so we ended up buying out the original owners, and then just over a period of time bought out the other two owners, and it was just my ex-husband and I that owned the airline at that time.
What was the name of the airline when you guys had purchased it?
Integra Air.
Okay. Yeah. And then what is it still around today?
No, during that time, before we were getting divorced, we used to do air ambulance and scheduled air service. So we actually did air ambulance also out of the Cayman Islands. We had a jet and stuff like that.
So like air ambulance would be if somebody gets hurt, or is it like to fly an organ or?
Yeah, both, anything, right? Yeah. So if we had, like I said, a private jet over in the Cayman Islands, and then in Alberta, we were one of different proponents who did air ambulance services.
So the business mind of me thinks, if you have an emergency, who pays for that then?
The province. In Canada,
so,
the province.
Okay. So the government does. Okay. That's interesting.
But internationally, a person would have private insurance, right? So if you got injured and you were somewhere, like they would used to fly a lot to Florida.
So beyond the ambulance side of it, you did commercial or was it private?
It was commercial. Yeah. Commercial scheduled air service after that. Yeah.
How many this is very fascinating to me. I think like Richard Branson, what he did, like, do you own the planes or do you own the planes and then you have to coordinate with getting the right pilots, everybody. It's like all the components to travel from point A to point B.
Yeah. It's aviation is a very complex business, right?
High overhead too.
Yeah. You have all of the Transport Canada things. You have all of the different components, safety and all that kind of stuff. It's very, very, very complex.
What would be the most challenging experience you had while you were in the airline business and you had to solve a problem as a CEO?
Oh, there was.
I'm sure you got some crazy shit.
I think the biggest thing would be human error, staff human error. Actually, we had a situation one time where, and things are so expensive. So we had a situation one time where we were retrofitting one of the aircraft with new GPS and all that kind of stuff. And the two of the pilots were coming in, doing different types of testing and stuff like that. And one of the pilots came in with a cup of coffee and accidentally tripped and spilt that cup of coffee all over the electronics. And surprise, that stuff's not covered by insurance. And just little things like that, like that's not a $5 thing. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars error. It's very, very.
Does a pilot like that keep his job?
Yeah, I wasn't in charge of hiring and firing pilots, but yes, accidents happen.
Little things like that.
Expensive accidents are very expensive.
I hope you never had an experience with one of the planes going down.
No. We've never had any fatalities. I guess that would be anything like that. Yeah.
What was like going through that? Like, how many employees did you have to have?
There's about 70, 80 between pilots.
Were you the CEO at the time?
No, I was the person who was in charge of the finance department. My ex-husband was the CEO and accountable executive. So that's two roles.
Yeah.
Accountable executive. When my ex-husband and I got divorced, I actually bought him out. So I had this. And we were going through a divorce. I actually lived in Mexico at the time. So the last thing I wanted to do was run an airline in Canada when I wasn't even living in the country. And I'm not a pilot.
Yeah.
So I ended up selling that airline to a company out of BC. And part of that deal was I would continue to stay on as now the CEO and accountable executive for that company. Yeah. And then COVID happened. Yeah.
Was that your way to get out?
So
I hope you had a buyout right away.
I mean, if you recall all of the challenges we had in COVID, Canada was even more challenging because of our restrictions that we had in place about people flying and not flying. I mean, in the US,
they wouldn't even let me in Canada back then.
It was like, very, very challenging.
Yeah.
And so again, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you have to go through not only internal challenges, but you sometimes have no control over what happens externally. Like, look what's going on in the world today.
Yeah. I think the CEO, I want to jump into being a CEO because I've been a CEO now. And I want to say there's a difference in CEO. People can write there's a CEO and they're the only employee in their company, or you could have dozens of employees, hundreds of employees. What is the misconception? Like, people don't truly understand when you're a CEO, the decisions you have to make and just like the mindset you need to have to be able to tackle it. Like, let's talk about just your experience as a CEO and what you've learned from it.
And I've been a solopreneur, and I've had, again, 70, 80 of my own employees. And then I've worked as a fractional parachute CEO in organizations that are going through massive organizational changes. So they all come with different types of challenges. So I've been in this kind of evolution, I'm going to say, going on 20, 25 years. And what I've noticed over the last 3 to 5 years is everything has changed when it comes to the expectations of what a CEO or a C-suite individual is going to have to carry. One of the things if I'm working one-on-one with some CEOs is they don't necessarily always have somebody to go to. You can't go to your staff talking about, hey, are we going to be able to make payroll?
Be held against you, or it can mess with their head.
Well, and your staff are looking for you to have the answers.
Yeah.
They're already coming to work, especially like I said, and we had COVID, and then it kind of settled, and now we have a whole bunch of other things that are going on.
And it's not in person, you're virtual. It's a different experience.
And you have your AI that's disrupting. You have all of the geopolitical stuff around the world that's happening. So a lot of leaders haven't experienced the changes that we're experiencing now, right? They're also learning as their companies are evolving or growing or downsizing or upsizing, whatever they're doing. So they too don't know the answers. And they're also, this is where I talk about how fear impacts the decisions that we're making. And when I say fear, sometimes people think of these dramatic things, but I'll give you some examples of how fear shows up subtly as a business owner is, just sitting there typing an email, maybe to your funder who you're going to miss the Q1 quarterly results. And you're writing that and you want to come across optimistic, but you don't want to give them a false sense of security. So you rewrite that email 4 or 5 times and you don't send it. And then you don't sleep at night because you're sitting on it. So those are different ways.
And then you're thinking about already what they're going to say, and you're thinking the worst things, and it's all in your head before even nothing happens.
And a person who is building their business, and you're going from a founder, and you have, maybe 4 or 5 people that you've recruited, and now you build this kind of friendship. You guys are in the trenches together, right? You guys know all of these things. You perhaps maybe have gone to their house, and your spouses, the kids, and all those things. And now you're going to have to lay somebody off, or you've lost a big contract. And the team that you want to have those conversations with, you can't. So those are the different, fear shows up in all different aspects. And one of the things I say to, CEOs or founders, if you're treading water, your team is already drowning.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have a conversation coming into the room to say, I don't know what's going to happen next month.
You think it's better to, as a CEO, to just be real? To be just honest, because sometimes you want to, but then it's like, if you are, then they might take it the wrong way and it might actually go in a very bad direction. I'm on both sides. I say that my one side is, you should be an honest leader. You should be able to come into the room and you should be able to tell. But not everybody can handle the truth.
But exactly. And your shareholders and, right? So it's very, very difficult, I think, for owners to have the armor to come in and say, you know what, my staff are looking up to me. They have spouses. They may have kids in university, and all the additional challenges is I need to show that I know the answers, even though most leaders are experiencing it for the first time. They don't know. Yeah,
and when you're growing a business, you're constantly seeing new things you've never seen before. So navigating new waters that you don't have the answers for, and you're trying to use your team around you to get the insight. But if you bring in too much intel, it could affect the whole situation.
It's like being a parent.
Yeah, I don't know that part.
It's like being a parent. Like you're the first child.
You're like, am I going to do this right? I don't want to screw this kid up.
And then your second child, you're like, oh, I kind of know what I'm doing. And then I'm a grandma now.
Oh,
so
wow,
now, thank you. I can hang out with my grandson way differently than when I was a parent. And my son and I had a conversation. He's 30, and gave me some parental feedback. And I was like, you're a parent now, so you're learning. We don't have those type of experience. So I think that's the same thing as being either a CEO or all that kind of stuff. You have older generations that are coming in, but the external context is not the same as it was 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah. It's interesting. One more question on the CEO transition, but I've noticed because so I'm 36, I'd be a millennial, but like having people that are in their 20s that employed, and then people that are twice my age that employ, you have to do a different approach because growing up at different times and way of looking at things, it's almost like you have to treat everything in a different structure and communicate it in a different way as well.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things that I work with, larger organizations is the architecture of a company. So we have the known architecture. So we have the strategic plans, the forecast, all the other things, but we also have the unknown architecture. So that's where the personalities come in, the history come in. And so you could have a really well-defined strategic plan, but like you talked about, you have all of the different key people. You don't know what their experiences are to execute the plan. So if you're not talking about the unknown architecture, your goal is not going to be moving.
What do you think the biggest mistakes CEOs make? Because you work with a lot of executives now, like what do you think some of the common mistakes they make as CEOs?
Not to trust themselves. They already know what the answer is.
They question themselves.
What I find is because the external environment is moving so quickly, they're looking for all this external validation.
Yeah.
But they know. They already know inside. It's very difficult to execute something when it's going to impact shareholders. It's going to impact your employees.
Everybody has an impact.
Everyone, right? And it's really difficult to trust yourself because we're afraid to make a mistake. And we're judged on the decisions we make.
But if you don't make a decision, nothing happens.
Yep.
And to the point of if you're close with people that are on the team and the decision means they no longer are a part of the team, like there's so many emotional things. And I think this is where sometimes leaders and CEOs are seen as like very, what's the word? Not nice, ruthless.
Yeah.
But most people, I always said to people, you don't know what that CEO is going through. You could say, hey, Monday morning quarterback, I would have made this decision. Unless you were in that situation, you wouldn't know what you would do.
Well, and you look at some of the responsibilities of CEOs and CEOs, founders, anybody that's in those C-suites, give disproportionately to the work. So behind the scenes, we have health that are suffering. We have relationships that are suffering. Ourselves are suffering.
They have their own life. People don't realize CEO has a life too.
But they don't really, right?
Because they got a marriage, health. They can go take time off for a couple hours.
Yeah. So all of those things is if everything behind the scenes in your personal life, if you will, is running smoothly, then you can dedicate that time. But if you have a parent who gets sick or you have a child that gets sick or you're going through a divorce and you no longer then can give to something that absorbs so much of your personal time.
Yeah.
And again, I think a lot of leaders, they don't have that group to go to say, hey, you know what? I just need someone to talk to. I don't solve my problems. Just let me vent.
Yeah. I found from my own experiences, I have those friends that are nowhere near the business and they're a friend that I just trust.
Yeah.
And I can call up and say, hey, here's all the things. By the way, you can't share this with anybody because I could get sued.
Yeah.
But like, here's the situation. But I think we all need that because if you don't vent out or at least be heard, you'll go insane. I'll call you Snap.
And and I think also social media, it has a lot of wonderful different things.
Yeah.
But I think social media also displays that if you're not doing this, you're already losing. And so owners and founders and stuff, they're competing with other companies that have different trajectories. They have different corporate personalities and stuff like that. So that's really hard for a founder to do too. They get into a business and they're like, I really thought I would have 3x my business or 5x my business or. And they're comparing themselves to something.
To the social media, which most of it is bullshit anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the real of it, but then there's like, oh, I did this, I did that. I think people, they see social media and they're like, well, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not pretty enough. I'm not reaching enough of my goals. There's good in social media and coming from the guy that lives on it, but there's also the side of like people thinking badly about themselves because how they view it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about an impact that happened in your life. So you were 25 years old, you were pregnant at the time, and you go get a checkup and you find out that you have HIV.
Yeah.
And you had no idea like what happened. Soon to find out that it was given to you by your then husband.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that story and like what that felt like?
Sometimes life has a way of introducing things to you that you didn't really even know you needed at the time, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you're like, why did these kind of things happen? So my ex-husband, my husband at the time, was starting a business, and he needed to get key man insurance, right, for the business that he was starting. So I thought, as a newly married woman, pregnant, I was like, I'm going to get life insurance because that's the responsible thing to do. So we actually did. We did the swab for life insurance. And it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from my doctor's office that said, it was the Friday before a long weekend in Canada, and said, the doctor needs you to come in and see you, right? So I was almost 6 months pregnant. And I thought, okay, well, we're going camping this weekend. I'll come in next week. And she goes, no. Well, actually, it was after they called me back and said, no, the doctor needs you to come in and see today. And so I'd actually talked to my mom earlier, and she was coming to town to buy groceries. And I said, hey, Doctor so-and-so called me, wants to come in. She goes, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know, but I got to go see him. So as a mom, a new mother to be, any type of parent, right? You're thinking of all of the worst things that could be happening, right? So I go in and see him, and I walk into the doctor's office. And this is a doctor, being in a small town, that knew me since I was a teenager, right? Since we lived there for 13. So I knew him for a long, long time. Yeah, almost 10 years. I would have known him, and was my mom's physician, my cousin's physician, like aunties. So he knew who I was. And so when I walked into the doctor's office, he was standing across the room, and he had a manila folder, right? And he just looked at me and looked at his folder and opened it up. And he told me that he was contacted by, I'm going to say the Center of Disease Control. That's not exactly what it was called back then, but he was contacted about the swab life insurance test. And I was thinking, because when you're hearing stuff, you're not putting things into context. And he said that they had contacted him because my test came back. There was a trigger for HIV. And I was thinking so many different things. But at the time, like, what? I'm 25 years old, married, and all I knew back then of HIV was IV drug users and gay men. Like the movie, I know you're younger, but the movie Philadelphia had just come out in 1996, and people were dying of AIDS. And so my doctor had told me, he said, I probably would only have a couple of years to live, and that my unborn child would too probably die. Because that's what he said to you? That was the life trajectory. And that I would have to then go to Saskatoon to get a blood test to confirm and everything else. Then I asked him, I said, my husband too? So back then, 30 years ago, there was a confidentiality stuff. He said, yeah, it was both of you. And in that moment, when we were doing the swab for the life insurance, my ex-husband said, gee, wouldn't it be weird if it came back I had HIV? And at the time, he said that to you? Yeah, at the time, I was like, well, that's a dumb thing to say. But it was in context of the things that he would say. Yeah. So I was like,
why would he say that?
Why would he say that?
Now I understand.
But so all of these things were going through my mind there. And then I told him, I said to my doctor, I said, well, we're going camping this weekend and stuff like that. And he said, burn everything, right? Like burn all the paper plates and all these things. Why? Well, because back then they thought transmission was through saliva.
But it wasn't.
Well, we didn't know. We know now it wasn't, but back then we didn't know what it was. So don't share your silver, don't share your plastic cutlery, don't share your plates, don't do all of these things. So I'm just standing there like absorbing this, thinking, is this what my life is going to be like? And so I left the doctor's office, went home, of course I cried all the way, and told my husband when I got there. And his reaction when I told him was just nothing really. So I knew again that he had gotten this news earlier. I was so pissed off. Like, you never reconcile those type of emotions with somebody.
Did you show that emotion to him? Say, why didn't you tell me?
No, I don't know. We had numerous conversations after, right? So we had different conversations after. I mean, you can get different type of blood tests, and then they can test how long it's been replicating in your system and all that kind of stuff. So we had different conversations, but at the end of the day, the reality was the reality. Like, what was I going to do?
Yeah,
like,
leave
him?
No.
Like, no, we're going to get divorced. I'm pregnant. And the other thing is in my mind is, who's going to want me? Like, I'm thinking I'm only going to have a couple years to live. He's only going to have a couple years to live. I'm pregnant. We're having a child.
That's really what you
like,
thought.
Yeah. And that was the knowledge, right? And different things is, I mean, luckily I had life insurance. So we're just trying to figure out what this was going to look like. And then within a few weeks, I went to the infectious disease clinic in Saskatoon. So it wasn't where I lived. It was a couple hours north. And I met with two amazing doctors. One was an infectious disease pediatrician, and then my infectious disease doctor. And they had told me that they are actually making progress with different types of medications. So they had different knowledge than what my local doctor, my general practitioner, would have had. So they had different knowledge about different testing that they were doing to reduce the infection from mother to child. So they felt fairly confident that they were doing some protocols that the U.S. was actually also involved in, that I would be able to be a part of. Controlled birth, I would have to stay at the Ronald McDonald House and all these different things to hopefully eliminate the transmission. So I felt hopeful that, you know, this was going to happen. So ultimately, on December 6th, I had a son, and he was born HIV negative.
That's so amazing.
So amazing. And then 6 years later, I had a daughter. Her too, she was born HIV negative.
And you were still living 2 years later.
I'm living now.
But here's the thing. Most people, hear HIV, which there's not a lot of really education around it. You've lived for 26 years past that date. You found that out, right? It's 20 some years?
Well, 30 years. It was actually 30 years on August 2nd, 1996. So it was 30 years ago, just last couple of weeks.
But the other thing is, too, people don't realize, you think you can't pass through saliva, but people think through sex.
Yeah.
But also, like, you could it's almost like dormant, where there is no sign where you even can give it to anybody.
Well, I think there's different. I'm privileged. I'm going to say privileged because I have access to medications. I have a job that allows me to go to my medical appointments and stuff like that. There's other people who aren't as lucky. So the way there's different types of medications. And I know, I just actually read an article that Bill Gates had just released that they're trying to do injections, right?
Yeah.
So they're doing injections because there's, individuals who don't have access to regular medications. So they could be living on the street. They could be living in remote communities. They could be living in other countries. So there's still HIV transmission. There's still people dying. There's still mothers giving it to their child. So if we can find easier ways to get medications to people,
It's really being able to take care of yourself more and going through the different procedures. Yeah. So I do want to transition because you're going to get into divorce and transition out of that relationship. But, you talked about when you found now your husband, Joe.
Yeah.
And when you first started dating, it's like, man, how do you talk about I have HIV, bring it up? You talk about, 6 months it took before you had the conversation. Yeah. Tell the story of that, because I know there's probably other people out there now that have HIV that are looking to date, but they're so worried. Like, help them figure out how to navigate it.
Well, I lived in that fear bubble.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody knew about my HIV diagnosis, right? I kept that confidential, except for some medical professionals in my immediate family. Nobody really knew. And of course, my kids' dad, I stayed married to him for 25 years. We didn't get divorced in 2018. I just thought he was going to be my person.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I was also thinking, well, who's going to love me? Right. And it was through that divorce, when I was seeing my doctors in Mexico, that they are the ones that opened up the concept that said, people do have long-term relationships. You can have a relationship. That's the first time I also heard the term is people think HIV as more as a chronic illness. It's not diagnosed now as an infectious disease. And I didn't realize that. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to have the courage to have this conversation. And then of course I met Joe. And, we would hang out. I lived in Mexico. He lived in Canada. But it was just something about his personality, right? Just a calming kind of personality. We used to play crib. We used to play cards. Yeah. Every time, again, I was getting divorced and selling the airline at the same time. So I was flying back and forth between Canada and Mexico. We would go to movies. We could do all of these different things. And I just knew that I think sometimes in life we have these crossroads where I talk about it now where it's regret and fear. as we're looking at certain things, and fear is just, if you've ever been in a situation and you have to have a conversation with somebody, but your mouth is so dry, you literally can't speak.
Yeah.
And it keeps you up at night and all these things. And so one of the things I was looking at is I knew if I didn't pursue this relationship, I was going to regret it. Because I used to sit down at the beach in Mexico and ask the universe for a life partner, like someone who I liked, someone who liked me, and you could hang out with. And so the universe had put him in my life. So I thought, I'm not going to let this opportunity pass me by, but am I going to be able to have enough courage, right, to be able to have this conversation? I did read a lot of Brené Brown's books where she talks about courage and vulnerability. And I knew that I didn't want to let this opportunity pass me by. Probably for about 3 or 4 months, I practiced the speech I was going to have.
Wow.
And I didn't ever have the courage. The timing wasn't right, or this wasn't right, or how was I going to have this conversation? I was actually graduating to get my doctorate degree. And I went to Cal University, and it was in August. And I thought, Joe said to me, I said, oh, I'm going to get my doctorate. He said, I'd like to come with you to that. So then I thought, oh, he might like me. Like, I knew he liked me, but I thought he might like me because he wants to come this major milestone event, right? Not just someone to play cards with and hang out. So I thought, we hadn't, been intimate or anything like that. So I thought, this is going to be a major vacation, right? So I have to have a conversation because it's respectful. And then I started getting nervous, had too much time passed, that he thought, why didn't you tell me? I've invested time and energy in conversations. Yeah. So it was probably a few weeks before we were going on this trip. And I came packed with, a manila folder of all things. Full of
speech.
Yeah. But it was all full of my health records.
Yeah.
I had gotten all my health records. I had gotten some reading material.
So you can show her proof. Show them proof.
I didn't know what to do. Oh. I hadn't done this before. How do you have this conversation? Again, so we're talking about CEO going through different things. You don't have experience, right?
Don't know what to say.
You just don't know what to say. So I just handed him this folder. I still remember we were sitting on this couch and I handed him this folder. And he's so funny. He opens it up and he's going through this and he's like, I'm thinking, what the hell? What is this, right? Yeah. And he's looking and tears are just rolling down my eyes and stuff like that. And he's like, okay. He goes, so he's looking at me. He's like, you have this? And I'm like, yes. And he just closes it and he goes, puts it on the coffee table. He goes, okay, well, that doesn't change how I feel about you. And so it was just like, we dress rehearse the worst case scenarios.
Yeah. And you probably felt so much relief and happiness in that moment because something I was dreading for so long.
Yeah.
Really wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Oh, was it? Well, yeah, internally it was. But at the end of the day, I think it's like I said, we dress rehearse sometimes the worst case scenarios instead of thinking, hey, you know what? Joy could be on the other side.
Yeah. Wow. That's a powerful story. I mean, you talk about living the fearless life. I mean, it's those kind of things. If you can build yourself up to get through in that situation and go, hey, tell them something, it's really not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can people, if they're listening now, any advice for them if they have a situation like that where they got to present some news, how they can best prepare? Is it putting the whole homework together and preparing the speech, or any advice for them to better prepare for that news? I
think it comes down again to regret and fear, right? And courage. Yeah. I think I honestly think now that courage is a life hack. I really think courage is a life hack.
Yeah.
And if you step into that, like I said, in my mind, I was thinking, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
He rejects me. I already think he's going to reject me. Right? So all of those different things. So I think is just step into life. Life is waiting to be called.
It's so good. So you got a book, you're speaking, you're doing a tour, but I want to talk about your movie coming out. And you've been working with Sean Vela, which is really cool. Him and I have worked together for 10 years. So you're in good hands.
Yes.
But what's the experience been like for creating a movie? Like, not many people create a movie on their life and story, and share a little details about it.
Oh my goodness. Like, I was like, who would have thought, right? Like, I mean, I kept my health diagnosis, like I said, a very close secret for almost 28 years. Like I said, wrote my memoir. And I didn't realize the impact of storytelling.
So powerful.
Because I didn't when I was looking at, again, even on the business side, when I was looking at things, I didn't think I had a peer group who would understand what I was going through. And so when I started, with the book and then people reaching out around the world, and then now taking that to film and meeting these amazing people. I mean, I've gone to Paris, I've gone to South Africa, I'm meeting you, working with Sean. It's also been very therapeutic because honestly, I've gone back throughout my whole life. So we've done some filming, talked about when I was a little kid, moving, and all of, the kids were interviewed in Mexico. And it's going back and realizing that, I think, just the stuff about life.
I was going to ask you that because I've done multiple film projects with Sean, and I look back at some of my things. It's like a therapy session, but it also gives you a reality and perspective about your life you never actually thought about.
Yeah.
Because thinking about if you're going back to when you were 10 years old or 20, and then you're like, oh, that story. And then you're like, oh, that's why I am who I am.
Yeah.
I think everybody should experience it because it's life-changing.
Yeah.
So for the people that are going to watch the film, what can they take away? Like, what are some things they're going to get out of it?
I'm really hoping what people get out is to live your true, authentic self.
Yeah.
And again, timing, I think timing is always right. I never felt confident enough to be able to share my story because I wasn't surrounded by a network of love, like with Joe and my kids, that I felt that I was going to be able to do it. The other thing is because of my profession, I didn't want to share my story because, again, I feared the rejection in the business world. Yeah. Right. I think that's an unfair way for people to have to live.
Yeah.
And, we all have very unique stories and unique talents that we bring, and we learn from those things from others. And so if I wasn't sharing my story or didn't have the courage to share my story, then someone else who could do something else that it could impact other people is not going to have his or her courage to tell their story.
I'm excited to watch the film. Before we go into the 3 rapid fire questions and end this, for people that are watching right now, where can they find more about you, but also where can they watch the film when it comes out?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media, Tristina Anderson, or my website, www.tristinaanderson.com. We're doing 2 premieres of The Fearless, so it's going to be released on September 19th. We're doing a premiere in Calgary, and then the following weekend, we're doing it in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan.
Nice.
And then we're going to figure out what we're going to do after that. And of course, we're going to look at how we can have it available online.
That's awesome. So, Tristina, you recently came back from Africa. Can you talk about your work with Africa? Also, I want to hear about it's Go organization. Go actually stands for grandma, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah. So Go is a not-for-profit out of South Africa, Johannesburg. Yeah. Actually, yeah. So I was over there, met a wonderful lady, Jane, who is the founder of the foundation, the not-for-profit. And the community is at the Safe Hub in Alexander. So Alexander is a community that was developed to assist on the other side of the highway for, gardening and all of those type of things. So it's a very poor kind of area of South Africa. And they have a safe hub there where the grandmas go. So when I first went there on the Monday, I got to go boxing with the Go-Go's. Yeah. So that was amazing. They're in excellent shape. And then when
you say boxing, like boxing,
like exercise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it was a couple days for me to recover after that painful exercise. But then we did some work at the Safe Hub. And the Go-Go's are doing amazing work. They're created some bags so you can find some of their stuff online that they're wanting to sell to raise money. But it's really a place for the grandmas to come to at the Safe Hub to network, share stories, and kind of build their network, if you will. Like I said, when I was in Alexander, and I live in Mexico as well, so I've had the opportunity of seeing underprivileged communities, but this was a different sort of underprivileged. The grandmas, the Go-Go's, they're raising their grandkids. So these aren't grandmas who've asked for certain things, right? There's more of not an obligation, that's not the right word, but there's a requirement. If they didn't raise their grandkids, who's going to?
Yeah.
And the amount of income that they have to be able to do this is very, very fixed. And there's a lot of responsibilities that are going on in South Africa when it comes to corruption and all the different challenges that are over there. One of the things that I did was when I was meeting with the Go-Go's was just share stories, right? I shared my HIV journey, which was something that was very different for them because, you know, I'm a white lady from the West, and some of our stories are very similar to what they've had. So again, fear and all of these other things, it's global. It doesn't matter where you are. And they shared some of their challenging stories and their fears that they have when it comes to their grandkids and their communities and raising and all of those things. So I'm going to go back in April. My husband and I are going to go back. We're going to show the Fearless premiere, but also continue.
That's awesome.
But also continue working, advocating, highlighting different ways that, you know, I can through our foundation, Resilience Horizon Foundation, help the Go-Go's there. They're doing a lot of entrepreneurial work. The grandmas are teaching their grandkids how to bead and they're sewing and all of those things. So from my business experience as well, how can we look at just elevating different things?
That's so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, the Go-Go's, you know, it was originally started because the grandmas were raising their grandkids because their parents have died from AIDS.
Oh, wow.
So there's a whole population there where the grandparents are raising their grandkids. I'm a grandma.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that, you know, I am a grandma now, I didn't think that was a potential possibility. And so there's that real human connection of, you know, looking at the Go-Go's, trying to figure out what I can do with sharing my story and having them help that reach, because they too are now raising their grandkids because their children, some of their kids have died from AIDS. Opening up the conversation further is now a new whole generation. So the grandkids are not talking about sexual health and are not having these other conversations, and they are becoming infected.
Yeah.
So I think we need to, one of the things that's near and dear to me that I really want to get out there is opening up those conversations, HIV conversations, and highlighting different areas, testing and all of those things. And so why that's so personal to me is because I was tested. I ended up having 2 HIV negative children. And in South Africa right now, they don't have access to the same testing anymore. Right? Yeah. A lot of funding has been canceled and cut back. So again, using this, any type of platforms to open up conversations, no child should die.
Yeah.
Especially when we have access to medications and testing. So if I can use any type of these conversations to highlight, let's get out there, have these conversations. These kids, these moms can be tested. These kids can be born HIV negative and then hopefully stop that cycle. So when I first found out I was HIV positive, well, and even now to this day, I didn't know anybody who was HIV positive, let alone a mom, right? I think statistically in Canada, less than 100 people in 1996 that were pregnant moms. But when I went over to South Africa, I was able to meet moms who are the same age as me, who had kids. You know, one of them, Go-Go Rachel, she had a daughter. She's the same age as I was. She's 56. I was 55. She also didn't know that she was HIV positive when she had her child. And her daughter was born HIV positive. Oh. And her daughter, Nao, is now 31 years old. My son, Braxton, is 30. So the mom, Go-Go Rachel and Nao are both HIV positive. And then Nao in that room, when I met them, she has a son who's 10 months old, who's HIV negative. So you have a positive grandma, a positive mom, a negative child. She talked about the challenges about keeping the diagnosis secret. And that resonated with me because my kids didn't know that their parents were HIV positive until 2018. So over 20 years. Wow. And I probably would have kept that secret if their dad and I weren't getting a divorce, right? It's very hard to have that conversation. But when my kids were little, even though they were HIV negative, I didn't want to share my story with them because I didn't want them to accidentally tell somebody. It wasn't necessarily just for me. I didn't want them to be ostracized. I didn't want them to say something to their friends And then their friends tell their parents, and their parents say, you can't play with them anymore.
Yeah.
And so when I was over in South Africa and they were talking about, you know, some of the go-go sharing the fact that some of their kids, adult kids, have died of AIDS and how that impacted them. And now they're raising their grandkids, and some of their grandkids are HIV positive. And then again, go-go Rachel, and all of there was just, when you look at somebody and you have all those shared experiences, I just felt very honored, right? That I was able to share my story, they were able to share their story, and we both knew exactly how the other person would have felt. I've never had that before, because even, you know, different things that happen in our lives, there's that certain type of internal, as a mom, that internalness that you feel that, like I said, I was able to share, which again, I thought felt very privileged that they shared their stories with me.
Wow. It is pretty inspiring. Like, it's crazy going there. I want to go there. I'm hearing the stories. Like, I want to go visit and see people and how they live their life. And it's just so different. We take things for granted here.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. Very lucky here.
Yeah. Okay. Rapid fire.
Oh, geez.
To you, what's it like to live fearless and without regret? What's that mean to you?
What it means to me now is stepping into every opportunity that comes available. Like I said, because regret's heavier than fear.
What does success mean to you?
Success is success to me now is when I put my head on the pillow for the very last time, I want to have a full life.
That's good. I always say, like, on your deathbed, you look back in your life, you want to say you did everything you could.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, last one.
Okay.
Viewer out there, they're looking to have success out of your whole life, everything you've done, from owning an airline to fighting different things. Like, you've had a lot of experiences and had a lot of success. What's your best advice for the viewer to have their own success in life?
I think at the end of the day, it's trust yourself.
Yeah.
You know all the answers, and we are always looking for external validation.
Yeah.
No one's lived your life. You know your true self. So trusting yourself.
That's so good. I really enjoy this interview. We're definitely, after the film comes out and everything, we'll have to have you come back. Thanks, on Brandon. Excited to watch Fearless. And for all of you out there, please check it out. Check out everything Tristina is doing. And as always, go out there, create something great, and become unforgettable, because life is too short not to. I'm Brandon T. Adams. Have a great day, everyone.